I was actually going to make a video about how airbrushing is much better, gives a much better finish than trying to do it with a brush. But it sort of morphed into one about batch production, because I was doing a batch of these and I spray painted them all, and something went wrong. I think there's something wrong with the paint, and it seems to have something in it that repels the water. So as you see, it's got lots of little white spots. So that's a disaster. And so batch production has its benefits, but it also has a few negatives, which I'll talk about. For a start, that's that one, that you're making quite a few sets, and if there's a systematic fault, every single piece is ruined, or at least needs some work doing on it to sort it out. Secondly, there's the fact that it's actually quite boring. I rarely do more than say 8 at a time, because beyond that it just gets so tedious to going through so many repetitive parts. And also, while we're on the number, while the number's boring, having made a lot of stock also has its issues. I'll show you another problem I come across. I make these wrens. I've been making them for 10 or 12 years now. I started, each one I made out of a parquet floor tile, quite a big one, that we had lifted when we had some work done. I had about 100 of them. They had bitumen underneath. I had to put them in the freezer, don't tell my wife, and then hit it off with a hammer. Now I have to buy the wood because I got through the 100 pretty quick. But I suppose I sell between 40 and 50 of these a year. Got a little egg inside, as you can see if you can see it. Just get the egg out. Oops. This one's playing hard to get. There we are, little egg. I was making batches of about 40 of these, so lasting almost a year, I suppose. Snug I had that I was selling mainly on Etsy, and then after about 10 years, overnight, the sales stopped through Etsy. Etsy somehow changed something, and now hardly any orders for this come through Etsy. And the problem is, I had already made, or was making another batch, and you see all these beaks I now have, which I don't... each of those took, believe it or not, getting on for 45 minutes to mill. So I'm left with quite a lot of work that I wonder if I ever get to use it. Perhaps I will, but over a long time. So if you've got too big a batch, then you're in danger that it's going to be wasted somewhat. The other problem is with making big batches, but at the moment I've got very little stock of anything, so if I make one big batch of one particular thing, that means I'm not making the other things, so suddenly I've got a lot of one, but nothing of all the rest of the range. So in that circumstance, it's really better making a few of each, so you've got more stock. You're more likely to get sales if you've got more choice for people. And the other one is, there's some of my more complicated ones. It's sometimes difficult to remember how I made them, and if you make, say you make 5, they might take 1 or 2 years to sell the really expensive ones, and then when you come to make the next 5, you've sort of forgotten how you did it, and you're on a bit of a learning curve again to put them together. So in that respect, for those big ones, it's better to make just 1 or 2, so that you've got some residual memory, I suppose, of how you made them. So although this economy of scale is also economy of remembering how to do it in that case. So yeah, things on the machines, particularly the CNC machines, I usually just make one of an item, check that it fits, and then you can run a batch off with the proviso that you don't want to make too many of them. Things like the crank handles, the brass ends for the axles, the bushings, that sort of thing, because they're used also in quite a lot of different automata, so you can make a stock and hold those and hold them. But otherwise, I tend to go for things in moderation, just to make a few of each one at a time, and try and keep stock of everything, something that I've failed miserably at the moment. So anyway, now I've got to salvage these. Fortunately I can. I'm painting over it with as I normally do with just some acrylic paint. It'll give a nice covering, and we can continue with making, in my humble opinion. Thanks for watching. See you next time.